This is a two-part video. First, in this video, I'll tell you how I got out. And more importantly, I'll tell you why it's such a race against time right now, as well as how you can get out too. And in part two, I'll share some experience with you from other owners who are actively trying to get out and what numbers they're being offered for their oceans. From the jump, if you really want to get rid of your ocean, hubris and pride have to go.
But why should I get out anyway?
I mean, if you're underwater, what does getting out even do anyway? Basically, you are burrowing through the sand pit and coming out on the other side where there is no sand, instead of waiting for fate or consequence to determine when you face such sand pit, potentially without a vehicle at all. I think that's the easiest way to say it. If an insurance company totals your ocean and writes you a check for its quote-unquote market value, that could be way less than the value is now. Your level of enjoyment that was previously justified by the exclusivity of the ocean may have diminished because it's becoming more apparent every day that it's all over soon. Roadside assistance, timely service, warranties, future updates, a complete software package, and especially parts may not be available in the future, or even now for that matter. At least you get to decide your own terms for addressing your negative equity. Your Ocean 1 or Extreme is worth between $28,000 and $30,000 today on a trade. If you want more, you'll have to fight, and you'll definitely have to wait, unless you're Brandy Moss.
Straight cash, homie.
Don't let pride keep you from getting out from under this car. And time is of the essence. Here's why it really matters. $2,000 less than you want now is way better than $10,000 less than what you want in 3 weeks, or 3 days for that matter. Let me explain. May 23rd is the earliest possible bankruptcy date. That's really soon. They do have this potential $7 million loan, but all we know is the death clock is upon us. That said, let's go to the speculation zone. This is where Fisker may be headed. Wait till they file for voluntary dissolution. They have no assets, no revenue, no access to capital, and are unable to engage in any kind of takeover or sale of the company. So what the heck is voluntary dissolution? Voluntary dissolution can occur when the directors and shareholders approve dissolution through a resolution, or when the time period for corporate existence expires as stated in a charter. A business may qualify for a voluntary administrative dissolution or cancellation if it is registered with the Secretary of State for more than 12 months, it is not actively engaged in transactions for financial gain, it has stopped doing business or never did business, or it has no assets. Hold on to those for just a second. If I'm the note holder, and if I'm Fisker, I essentially am, this is what I want. We take everything you have, and then you nope the heck out of there. There's no bankruptcy because there's nothing to liquidate. There's no protection because there's nothing to protect. The note holder takes everything while the company is still quote-unquote solvent, and Fisker is literally in the perfect position for this to occur. It's all been set up. Remember, we're still in the speculation zone. But this is a fact. Technicians I've spoken with have told me the oceans are at ADESA, A-D-E-S-A. That's bad news. It's an auto auction business owned by a retailer you probably know named Carvana. I just sold my Model Y to them less than 2 weeks ago, and subscribe for that story, it's coming soon. But let's say Fisker can't sell any more oceans, or the sales are so slow that it's not cost effective to keep trying. All Fisker has to do is come up with a number and dump all the oceans that are left off to ADESA, which is where they're already parked. No more cost for Fisker, one last payday for the note holder, and after that, there's no more assets and no more profits. Basically, this voluntary dissolution list of stuff is going on. On the day that happens, or the day the first one of them is sold at auction from that situation, the market value of your ocean could dip another 20, even 30%. And now your $28,000 ocean trade is a $20,000 ocean trade. And let's be honest with ourselves. It's not like the market has decided where these are going to land anyway. This is what you get when you ask. Or something laughable like this. And remember, it just gets worse. Pride is not an option here. I am always shopping for cars. Cars I don't want, cars I don't care about, cars that don't exist yet. And on the other end of the spectrum, cars that are literally on every lot in the US. Recently, I got a hit on a new EV I'd never seen in person, and I wanted to drive it for you guys. Most of you probably haven't seen one either. So I went to test drive it. I took the Ocean with me as it's a cool conversation starter, and it let people know that I'm interested in cool cars. While I was looking over the new car, I thought, why not see how much they would give me for a trade? Can't hurt. I called it a little game. It took them 24 hours to get me a number. They were shocked they couldn't find one right away, but the number was full retail, $25,000. I just summed all that up in a recent video. But long story short, I couldn't pass it up. So I decided to pull up my big boy pants and figure out how to make up the $9,000 in negative equity that I had. Turns out I owed $22,000 on the Model Y, and Carvana was going to buy it from me for $30,800. That's about $9,000 in equity, which is how much I was underwater on my Ocean. I owed $34,000 on it, and the dealer was going to give me $25,000. So I borrowed the full amount of the purchase price of the new car, which I will reveal in the next video, literally later today. It'll be in the top right corner on mobile devices right now, and it'll be attached at the end of this video. I gave the dealership my $9,000 I netted from my Model Y, and I drove away, knowing I'm still rocking about $10,000 in negative equity, but no longer with a Fisker Ocean. You'll have to subscribe for the dealer experience. The guys get a 9, but the OEM and the IRS get a lower score for reasons that will become apparent quickly in that video. It's coming soon enough. So that's how I got out. I traded my super reliable, never had service ever or any issues at all Model Y with $9,000 in positive equity and my Ocean for one EV that has to do the job of both. But I'm very lucky. I was only $9,000 underwater on my loan. Most Ocean owners are closer to $30,000, and that could be $40,000 by the end of this week. Just remember that going forward. So after watching this, or maybe before, but with less urgency, you might want out from under the Ocean. Hilarious pun, I know. First, to start that process, it will really help you to admit that owning the Ocean is a mistake that must urgently be undone. The steps after that are much less difficult to tolerate once this admission has been achieved. I've done my best to help you cope with the grief process here on the channel. Feel free to revisit any of my recent videos and listen to the pain and frustration in my voice. We can bond. This video will still be here when you get back. YouTube will even save your progress if you're signed in. But once we've bonded, or if you already feel you're ready to take the next steps in getting rid of your Ocean, let's move forward. Deep breath. Here we go. Step 1A. I got to address my Ocean One people, the ones who really invested in the company and took the big risks at the earliest time. If you have a title in hand, you're ready to move on, but first I've got to make sure that all of us are on the same page. But there are steps you can skip in this process to get out from under your Ocean, so if you don't have time to waste, skip to step 3, which is this timestamp. Step 1B. Let's find out your numbers. How much do you owe? How much is your Ocean worth? Put the numbers together and find out your negative equity. And I know this can be a big number. Fisker upsold a lot of people to an extreme who weren't ready to pay that much money, but they took the risk because the Ocean was so enticing and the sales push was hardcore. Once you've got your negative equity number, let's find our tolerance. You need to work out a budget that fits you, and your budget's going to get tighter if you make this move. So determine how much more monthly payment you can tolerate, and equally as importantly, if there are any places you can eliminate monthly payment from your budget that will offset the increase. Paramount Plus or Stars, for example. I pay for those right now, and I have no idea why. Step 2, once you've done your budget, now it's time to postulate all of your options to refinance your equity or eliminate it, or a combination of those if possible. If you have a credit union, you can borrow against your savings. If you have a relationship with your bank, you can ask about a personal loan for part of it, depending on how much negative equity there is and your own personal financial situation. Also things to think about. What else can you sell? Do you have another older car? Maybe some valuables you don't care about but weren't really thinking of. Should you ask for a loan from mom and dad? Yes, it's that important. Or do you have a home equity line of credit? You might even be stashing a little side hustle cash for a rainy day. Well, right now the forecast is calling for cats and dogs. It might be time to make a move. Once you've assessed your options and found out what your tolerance is, and you have that number, let's move to step 3. Step 3, title holders, welcome back. It's time for all of us to go shopping. Dealership shopping, that is. If you want an EV to replace your Ocean, because you are now aware that EVs are good and you're never going back to gas, and you also need the utility that your Ocean offered, here's what you're looking at. Remember, pride to the side. I'll rip off the Band-Aid right now. We are trying to escape a mistake, not upgrade, unless you've got a title and you've got the cash and you're here to upgrade, at which point the world is your oyster. This should be an enjoyable experience. Either way, we need a dealership to dump this Ocean off to. How do we do that? Find an EV for sale. I'll just say it once, a used Model Y is your best option if you can afford it. But I know you don't want a Tesla. That's why you bought an Ocean in the first place. And you can't buy a new Tesla because they won't take your trade anyway. But if I sold you on a used Tesla Model Y, they're everywhere in every condition, starting right around $30K. Do you? The next thing you want to think about, once again, depending on your income, is the used EV tax credit. It's hard to find and harder to get and brand new, so dealerships don't always know it's there or how to look for it. Carvana is very clear about which cars get the credit. However, remember, that would mean you've already gotten rid of your Ocean. But it's a good place to start the shopping process and finding your options for the EV tax credit. And remember, the EV tax credit number is $24,999 or less. So now that that's out of the way, on the bottom end of practical EVs is the Nissan Leaf SV Plus. The Leaf SV can be had with the used EV tax credit fairly easily, for around $15,000 after the credit. It has about 200 miles of range, and the big drawback is the CHAdeMO, which only charges at about 50 kilowatts and is a little bit annoying, but we are at the lowest end. And the features are close enough for the money. You're just missing all-wheel drive. That's your floor. 5-seater, plugs in, hatchback, not an intolerable commuter car. Next up, the Volkswagen ID.4. These float around for sale right around the cutoff for the EV tax credit, $25,000. We can leave Carvana. They're not going to be able to sell us a car because they won't take our trade. And I've confirmed that if you try to trade a Fisker Ocean to Carvana, no dice. The ID.4 is the best deal as far as a crossover SUV that does what the Ocean does and can be had with all-wheel drive. The best deal right now that does everything the Ocean does, has good horsepower and features and looks nice, and is available at dealerships is the Volvo XC40 and C40 Recharge. They hover between $30,000 and $35,000, and I definitely encourage you to check them out. The big drawback there is the range is around 200 miles, so a little under what you would want, but they're okay. Another great option in that price range is the Mustang Mach-E. They hover right around $30,000, $35,000 and can sometimes be had for less, depending on the trim. Also on the menu around $35K is mid-range models of the Nissan Ariya. They can also be had at low mileage. The Ariya is super similar to the Ocean in features and cubic footage, and really a nice option. It's good looking, and they're still pretty rare. As we walk closer towards the title holders territory, as in not a lot of negative equity to dissolve, we start finding the Audi e-tron. They can be had in the 30s with a lot of variation depending on the year and the trim, but all of them are mostly loaded and very nice. Also in the lower 30s, there are lots of low mileage examples of the Toyota BZ4X and the Subaru Solterra. Also available in all-wheel drive, but like the XC and C40 Recharge, pretty low range. And the charging is the problem on those. 100 kilowatt max, and you don't always get that. Personally, I suggest you get in one and assess the situation yourself as far as preference, because they don't feel upscale when you get in them. Remember, low to mid 30s, a Model Y long range can be had at this price point. I know, Tesla is a bad word, and I don't blame you, I just sold mine. Right at the top of that price range in the 30 to 35 is the EV6 and Ioniq 5. The examples are harder to find because they're just really well-rounded. They do excellent road tripping, they charge really fast, but they are out there. Another option to look for, and these can vary wildly depending on the year, are Kia Niro EVs and Kona EVs. They're front-wheel drive, they charge a little slower, and they're a little smaller, but they'll definitely do the job and are usually really well equipped. I don't recommend going with a Bolt straight out of the gate, but if you want to copy the VIN number and check the GM website to make sure that specific example has had the battery replaced during the recall, it could be a good option. But charging is very slow on a Bolt. Now that we know what we're looking for, it's time to track one down. Find a vehicle, scroll down, find the dealership, make the phone call, let them know what you've got, and see if they'll give you a number for your Ocean. It's not an easy process, and it can be annoying to get a hold of dealerships, and you probably have to be doing this during the business day, but rinse and repeat until you've got some numbers. And here we are, you've made it to the end of the video. You've got 3 options. Go with your best deal if you've found a way to get the negative equity worked in, especially if they'll take your trade. Option 2, of course, is wait it out, drive the Ocean, make your payments, and hopefully everything will be all right. And the third option, which I waited till the end of the video to tell you, is go get the cheapest gas car you feel comfortable driving safely and just park your Ocean. Now there's extra expense there. You got to insure an extra car. You still got to make all those payments on the Ocean. And it also comes with uncertainty because you don't know what's going to happen or how much more equity you will lose. But in some situations, what you owe is more than what you can come up with to get out of this deal. So instead of getting out of the car, stop driving the car. And if you can't stop completely, try to limit your driving to very short trips. There's no good answer here. And when you're done with your deal, if you decide to get out, you won't feel great, but you will feel better. Join Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access to videos, and let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything else I can help you with. Also, feel free to email me at adamsevreviews@yahoo.com. I understand your frustration, and I'm here to help. Subscribe for more. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey! Smash the like button!
Thank you.